case is perhaps in this Fourth Republic the most high-profile case, the election petition case, which engaged the attention of this nation for well over 8 months, and judgment spanning 588 pages was delivered. But in my research preparing for today, I noticed that you stand out as delivering the most far-reaching judgment. We recall it was a 5-4 decision. You were in the minority, dissenting with JVM Doche, his lordship, who advocated a rerun only in affected polling stations. Justice Julius Ansah also advocated a rerun in only affected polling stations. You can find that on page 101 of the judgment. And Justice R.C. Owusu also, in dissenting with you, advocated for a rerun where votes are to be annulled. The petition succeeds in part. You can find that on page 232 of the judgment. But my lord, you alone appear to order an entire rerun of the presidential elections. Page 505 of the judgment, you said, and I quote, "I will therefore grant the relief, 1, in view of the evidence led, and decline to grant relief, 2. I, however, as consequential order the second respondent, that is the Electoral Commission, to organize an election to elect a president, as I cannot rely on an election which was seriously fraught with all the malpractices, irregularities, and statutory violations proved in this petition, to declare the first petitioner as having been duly elected." Many analysts have said that this judgment you gave did not consider the public good, the stability of the country, how this could have really derailed our peace and stability of this country. How do you react to that, being that you were clearly the only one who stood out in this judgment?
Please, it's a misconception, Mr. Chairman. Please, what I did was that if you look at where the statutory infractions occurred, there was no way President Mahama and the current president could have obtained 50+1. And what is the Constitution saying? It says, what it says, that if you do not have 50+1 of the elected, 50% plus 1 of the valid elected votes cast, you cannot be declared president. But people are making a meal out of this. So therefore, if you look at the pinches which were affected, if you go for the 49-3, nobody had the 50% plus 1. None of them. So obviously, the Constitution is telling us that you have to conduct fresh elections, and it could be conducted only in places where there were statutory infractions. Even the petitioners were not quarreling with most of the constituencies and most of the polling booths. Yes, they were not quarreling with them. Because you cannot say that, oh, as for this constituency or polling booth, there was nothing wrong with it, but I'm still going to order rerun or revoting or whatever. That would be wrong. Because they themselves are not complaining. They themselves are not complaining. People must be very, very analytical. We in Ghana couldn't have denied ourselves of the president. Yes. But by virtue of the fact that the elections, to me, was fraught with serious illegalities and even constitutional illegality, I would advocate that the judgment should be read as a whole. Because whichever way you look at it, none of them, the two contestants, could have obtained 50% plus 1. So obviously, we couldn't have lived without a president. And the EC was enjoined by the Constitution to have conducted fresh elections in the area affected. Yes, and mind you, the area affected, the police stations affected, were far below half of the areas which were not affected. Yes, of the 26,000 police stations or whatever, they were quarreling with about 11,000. If my memory, puts me on the right track, they were quarreling with about 11,000. So obviously, the 15,000 or whatever were left unaffected. So, honorable member, that's my position in the matter. But the judgment must be read in its entirety. Yes, I couldn't have declared any of them as winner of the elections. No.
So, my lord, if I'm understanding you clearly, you are saying that you did not intend to recommend the rerun of the entire election. It's just for the areas affected, because your distinguished colleagues were very specific. They were clear in the language used. For example, Julius Ansah said at page 101, rerun the election in polling stations affected. JVM Doche said rerun only in affected polling stations. But you were very general, and that is what has lent credence to this, what you are calling a misconception.
Honorable, I see your point, but then going back to my answer, you see, if something is perfect, what do you do to it? You do nothing to it. If it is perfect, if the 15,000 polling stations were perfectly in order, a judge had no power, yes, to declare that there should be rerun. Yes, you have no power to bend the release shot to make that order. So it is implied that since the two of them couldn't have obtained the 50% plus one, obviously the Electoral Commissioner is constitutionally mandated to have organized the elections. But if it was not there, well, that is a different matter altogether. But then you should look at the pressure which was exerted on us, the mass of evidence which we had to go through, and the time frame for us to deliver the judgment. Every judgment is devoid of perfection. Every judgment, no matter how you look at it, yes, it's devoid of perfection. So yes, that was the reason why.
Yes, Chairman, let me refer the nominee, since it's on presidential petitions. We have stated the law in Kenya and in Nigeria. When a presidential petition is presented, in our case in Ghana, by your words, it took you some months, about eight months. Would you want us as a country to have a definite, and Chairman, with your indulgence, let me read Article 64. I know the nominee as Chief Justice will have a role when it comes to 64(3) under the rules of court. The validity of the election of the president may be challenged only by a citizen of Ghana who may present a petition for the purpose to the Supreme Court within 21 days. The rest, the record will capture the full article up to 3. In Nigeria and Kenya, within a certain period, the matter must be determined. In Ghana, you take 8 months. It could be longer. Will you canvass for a definite time for the determination of this? Thank you, Okujato.
Chairman, the Rules of Course Committee, which is mandated by the Constitution to come out with the rules to, regulate election petitions, came out with new rules meant for the 1916 elections, and we had 2016 elections, and we had a workshop at Senchi for about 3 days, and we went through it, and I am assuring you that it will never be what we had earlier. So I cannot,
Chairman, what will it be?
No, it will be shorter.
Which shorter in terms of period for our record?
Yes. In here, I cannot tell you that it will take about 1 week or 2 weeks, because Mr. Chairman, the Constitution makes provision for somebody to stand in the stead of the president. Yes, and justice hastily administered may not be justice at all. Yes. Yes, but we tried in the old rules to fix the timelines for about 42 days. And if it is clear to honorable members, then it means when the election petition is presented, we can, get rid of it within that shortest possible time. And that is under the rules just for 42 days. And I think it will certainly put pressure on us to determine the petition if and only if it comes. But for the time being, if you are dealing with justice, please, at times you have to be very patient.